Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pausing with Plants virtual event with the Urban Botanist. I'm Leanne. I'm the events programmer for the AC Hub. Today's event has closed captions available in English. To turn on closed captioning, press on the CC icon along the bottom of your toolbar. AC is always connected. Tune in to our live virtual events like this one to stay connected with the AC community. So before we get started, we're going to share a couple of housekeeping items. Today's event is in webinar format, meaning as an attendee, you can see and hear us. However, we cannot see or hear you. Along the bottom of the screen, you will find a chat button. Feel free to use this feature to introduce yourself and to connect with your college community. Following today's presentation, we welcome you to type your plant questions in the Q&A tab, which is also located along the bottom of your toolbar. Once the Q&A period begins, I will read the questions out loud to our facilitator, Emma, to answer. Today's event is being recorded, and the recording will be available to rewatch on the AC Hub On Demand website in the coming days, and a link will be shared in the chat now. So to kick off today's event, we're going to give everyone a fun question to answer. All you have to do is answer the question by typing in the chat, but please wait to press send until we say so, because we're all going to send our answers at the same time. A tip is to ensure that you're typing to both panelists and attendees so all can see if you're comfortable. So the question is, what plant is on your spring 2021 bucket list? So again, please wait until everyone has had a chance to type their answer before we press send. The question again was, what plant is on your spring 2021 bucket list? And this of course can include indoor plants, outdoor plants, something for your garden or your herb garden. So just give everyone a couple more seconds. Okay, I'm going to count down from 3 and we'll all send our answers. 3, 2, 1, go. Lavender, eucalyptus, basil, roses. I see spider plants in there. Microgreens, orchids. So many great answers. Thank you everyone for taking part and for sharing today. We would now like to welcome Emma Terrell, the creator and owner of the Urban Botanist, who is a naturalist at heart and is always looking for ways to engage with nature and share her love and passion with others. This is what sparked the creation of the Urban Botanist. Nowadays, we often feel a deep disconnect with nature, starved for that interaction with our environment that often goes too long in between screen time. Her hope was to bring the outdoors inside and encourage urban dwellers to engage with the incredible natural world around us in an urban environment. She facilitates educational workshops, is an artist in biophilic design, and is always looking to talk plants or bugs with anyone and everyone. Emma, over to you.
Thank you so very much for that lovely introduction, and welcome everyone who is deciding to take a moment away from whatever projects you're working on to spend a fabulous hour with me. I know it is beautiful and sunny, so I hope you're at least by a nice big window or have had the chance to get outside today. And if you haven't, I'm sure after today's session, you will just be dying to get outside and enjoy the beautiful weather and engage with nature in your own way. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited to talk all things plants with you, all things nature, all things green and growing. And I love seeing these answers in the chat of what everyone is excited to be growing this year, both indoors and outdoors. It's that time of year, right, where it's all in our minds and we're all getting excited for growing. And I know we've just come out of a very long winter, a very long and crazy winter filled with lockdowns and quarantines and all the things. And, you know, this goes even far past beyond our winter months of why and when it's important to engage with our plants. Obviously, of course, it's a lot easier during the summer, during the spring. We've got our plants outdoors, we've got our gardens, we've got our indoor plants. But truly the art and act of engaging with nature is something that should be practiced on the daily. I don't care if you're in the dead of winter, if it's in the dead of February, or you've got a tiny little apartment. This workshop is for you to learn all about how and when and why it's important to pause with plants and really hone in on the true power of our plants and what they can do for us, and so much more. So welcome. I'm so excited to be spending this with you guys. So as Leanne mentioned, if you've got questions, feel free to type them in the chat. The last 10 to 20 minutes of the session, I'll be going through the Q&A. Chances are there's a question in there for you too. So please do stick around for that. I love the Q&A session because so many amazing questions come out and it just makes for a great conversation. So even though I can't verbally chat with you, please feel free to type your question in the chat and I will certainly get to your inquiry. I absolutely love plant questions. So a little bit about me, guys. I'm Ottawa based. I'm Ottawa born and raised. I started my business, the Urban Botanist, the same month that I graduated from university, from Carleton. So if any of you students out there are kind of going course to course, you're feeling a little bit lost in it all, you're not really connecting with anything that's lighting you up, trust me, I was there. I was there for like 9 years, way too long. Pushing myself, trying to manage my school to social life balance, and it got quite hectic at times. And it did go the way that I had always hoped it would, and that I now have a business, that I'm doing something that I love every single day. So if you're kind of in that funk of not knowing what you're hoping to do or hoping to get into, just keep on trucking, keep on tuning into yourself. And I hope that that my story can be a somewhat of a bright light for you as you know, a potential of where you can end up and what you can be doing. I had no idea that I'd end up doing this, but I love it so much. I started the business with the idea and hope of engaging with people like you to grow their green thumbs. So that's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be teaching you guys all of my tips and tricks for how to grow your urban jungle, grow your plant collection on a budget, my top plants for beginners, repotting techniques, watering techniques, all of the things, and hope that I can really provide you with a great blanket for how to get started with growing your green thumb. And we're also going to talk about the benefits, like why plants make people happy, how they contribute to a more positive space, and create a more positive energy for us to be around. So we're going to talk about all those things. I'm really excited. Let's start out with terrariums. That was kind of what catalyzed the Urban Botanist. And if you don't know what a terrarium is, I'm going to show you, I'm going to tell you. I think that terrariums are a really great way to engage with nature and garden under glass. A terrarium is a really cool, I call it kind of like a snapshot of an ecosystem captured inside of a glass vessel. Like, so cool. These are self-sustaining, self-watering systems. I do full-blown terrarium workshops as well. I've got so many free resources on my YouTube channel where I will actually walk you through how to make one of these. But why I think terrariums are awesome and super neat is because this is a great way to just watch something grow on your computer desk, in your kitchen, something like that. You know, these can go in absolutely any space. They come in all different shapes and sizes. It's a fun way to get creative, get crafty, and just grow something new. So terrariums, totally friggin' awesome. Can anybody guess how often I water these terrariums? Any terrarium with a lid on it? Any guesses for how many times I've watered these terrariums? We've got a never, every 6 months, 0. Got some good guesses here. Guys, would you believe me? I have never watered my sealed terrariums. I watered them the very first day that I made them, when I was first putting all my plants in. I added water, put the lid on, boom, that was it. I'm serious. I'm dead serious. So for the low maintenance gardener, maybe you've got a cat that really likes to get into all of your plants. And this is why I'm a dog person. My dogs don't typically tend to get into your plants too much. But for cats, I find that they don't really get into your terrariums all that often. So another great option for those of you who are cat people, have really curious kitties that get into all of your plants, a terrarium is a great option for you. And I promise, I do not look at glassware the same way anymore. I've thrifted all these pieces of glassware. It's like, makes it all that much more fun and all that much more unique. So I encourage you to try out a terrarium. Try it out. They're super easy to make. They're super fun. Check out my YouTube, check out my Instagram for some tips on the right plants to put into your terrariums, because there's a whole multitude of different types of plants that I recommend. But if you're looking to try a new hobby, try a new craft, obviously horticulture is the way to go, and just indoor and outdoor gardening. But terrarium making is a really fun, spin-off of that craft. And they make really great gifts. I mean, seriously, who wouldn't love one of these? You never have to water it, like I said. So I think it's kind of like the gift that keeps on growing, mind you. So it's kind of it's a great option. Instead of giving, your mom Mother's Day flowers, maybe a terrarium, or maybe a houseplant. Let's talk houseplants. How many of you guys at home have no houseplants whatsoever? Zero. You don't have one. You've killed them all. You're too scared to get one. How many people have no houseplants at all? None. We've got a couple people. Okay. That's cool. I see you. I'm here for you too, because I've got all the recommendations for you guys to go out and be confident in choosing a plant that's right for you and your space. And they're also not expensive plants, okay? They're not going to break the bank. They're easy to find. You can find them at Home Depot, Canadian Tire, IKEA. A lot, especially now, garden centers carry a lot of tropical indoor houseplants. And I'm going to talk about my favorite ones for you guys, especially if you're a beginner, if you're someone that kills everything. You're like, oh, don't have a green thumb. I kill everything I touch. No more. I do not believe in black thumbs or brown thumbs. Everyone has the ability to grow something, and you just need the right information when you're going out and purchasing your plants. How many people go to Home Depot or IKEA and you went there to buy something completely non-plant related, but you walk by that plant section and you're like, it's something about it that just draws you in. You're like, ooh, maybe I could get a little plant. Maybe I could get something like this. Maybe, ooh, these plants are, and it pulls you in, and you end up going home with that plant. And maybe that plant doesn't do so well. In a week or 2 weeks or a month later, it's just dead. And you're like left feeling frustrated. You're like, well, how the hell did I kill this thing? I don't know what I did wrong. I watered it. I loved it. I did all the things. A lot of people, it totally happens, right? Kendra gets it. Lynn gets it. Sylvie, guys, I was there once, okay? Totally there. Every single time. Ollie's been there. It happens. There's something about plants that you want it. So I invite you to pause with your plants that you have at home, your plants that you're looking at the department store. You're like, I need this. No, I love it. I want it. Take a moment and pause. Pick that plant up. Maybe it's got a name on it. Oh, this is a ZZ plant. Take a quick second and type that plant name into your Google search bar. ZZ plant care. Okay, this plant needs low light, or oh, this plant needs high light. But my apartment only has really, really low light. So maybe this won't be a good fit. I really, truly encourage you to take that mindful moment before you bring a plant home that maybe isn't going to be the right plant for your space. And it truly takes 5 minutes. And I promise you, it makes you feel that much more connected to the plant that you do end up selecting and bringing home, because you did your due diligence. You wanted to be a good plant parent. You're like, no, okay, this one really needs a lot of sun and I have like a really low light space. So put this one back. This plant's not for me. Let's go around. Let's see if I can find a different one that is the right size, the right style, the right look that I'm going for, and look up that plant. Truly, this is the best way to, of course, start out with finding the right plant for you. I also recommend going to your local nursery. There are so many fabulous nurseries in Ottawa. And the reason why I recommend going to nurseries is, of course, A, they're local. B, they are filled with professional horticulturalists that work there who know absolutely everything there is to know about plants. So they'll be able to tell you, oh, you've got a low light space. Another thing I like to do is I like to take a picture of my space, before I head out. You know, if you've got a little corner that you're like, oh, I'd really like to put something there. You've got your work from home station. I really want to put something there. Take a picture. This helps you and the staff member that you're dealing with kind of visualize how much space you truly do have. Is that a north facing window? Is it indirect light? Is it bright light? What does it all mean? By going to a nursery, you're sure to find somebody that is a professional and able to help you out with picking the right plant for your space. Another reason why I like using nurseries or shopping at nurseries is because the plants are typically in really good health and they're pest free. Two major things that we want with our plants, right? Sometimes with the big box stores, it can be a little bit you have a little bit more odds of bringing home a plant that might have some pests on it, that might have been overwatered by someone who works at Canadian Tire, who maybe is from the tools section, or maybe had to be on plants that day and overwatered everything. You just never know. So that's why it's also super important when you are picking out a plant to make sure that the soil doesn't feel soggy. That's a good indication that it's possible it's been overwatered. You know, it's generally looking healthy. You always want to look for signs of insect activity. Are there any webs? Are there any spots that maybe look a little bit questionable? Again, pause with your plants. This is a living thing that we want to take the time to respect. We want to take the time to understand and connect with. So truly, it goes a long, long way. So let's talk about plants that are the right plant for your space. No matter what space you're in, you've got lots of light, you've got no light, you are somebody who has killed everything, or you're really good at taking care of plants. It doesn't matter what shape or size. These are my plant recommendations for you. The very first, a ZZ plant or Zanzibar gem, okay? These are pretty easy to find. They're absolutely beautiful. This is a small one. They can get huge, like massive 10-inch size pots, massive, massive, massive. Great for a floor plant if you're looking to put something on the floor, beside a chair, beside a couch. These do get big, and they are extremely low light tolerant, and they're very resilient as well. So you can put them in a low light space and they will still thrive. They will still really be happy and do okay. The other thing about these plants is you barely have to water them. You only have to water them maybe once a month, okay? Which is great for those low maintenance gardeners. You know, I will ask you guys a question. How many people, or actually I should say, what do you think is the #1 cause of fatality for houseplants? This plant is called the ZZ plant, Yasmin. Yes. I'm going to ask you guys. Okay, we've got overwatering, root rot, underwatering, too much water, not enough light, bad soil. These are all really good guesses. Fungus gnats, bugs. The #1 cause of indoor plant fatality is overwatering. Overwatering, too much water. Most of you guys got it. You guys are on it. Woo! You're absolutely right. And it's overwatering. You know what it is? People get their new plant, they bring it home, they're like, woohoo! Oh my God, I'm so excited. I got a new plant. I'm going to water it every single day. I'm going to give it all my love. No. We do not want to water this plant every single day. In fact, there are almost no indoor houseplants that need to be watered every single day. Are there a couple light bulbs going off for you guys? You're like, oh, wow, that makes so much sense. I friggin' water every single day. My plants look pissed. They don't look happy. It's because you're watering too often. And we're going to talk about how to water and how to know when to water. We're going to talk about that. Absolutely, Martin. You want to sing to your plant every day. 100%. That's me too. Smother with love, but don't smother with water. But this plant is easy to kill. Of course, you can kill any plant, anything that's living. But this plant is easy to kill by overwatering because it doesn't need much. It's got these big, thick, fleshy bodies, these very succulent style leaves. And that's a good indication, or that's going to tell you that this plant doesn't need to be watered all that often, okay? So that's one of my plants for beginners. If you're looking for something that's low maintenance, as long as you're not overwatering it, We've learned that, right, guys? We're not going to water too often. We're going to talk about watering. But this is one of my favorite plants for beginners. They're so sleek. They're so cute. I just love a ZZ plant. So this is called a ZZ Zanzibar. All right, guys. All right, let's move on to the next plant that I recommend for beginners. This one probably looks really familiar to a lot of you guys. This one here is called a snake plant, or Sansevieria, mother-in-law's tongue. They come in all different varieties, shades, colors, sizes as well. They can get really big. They can get a little bit shorter, stockier. There's so many different variations of a snake plant, but these are phenomenal plants for beginners. Truly, they're like, I mean, I shouldn't say they're impossible to kill because nothing's impossible to kill, but these are really, really fabulous plants for beginners. They're also super at removing our VOCs or toxins from the air that we breathe. We all know that plants produce oxygen and consume our carbon dioxide, but these plants are one of the most efficient at doing that. So, you know, a lot of the junk that's in our air, ammonia, formaldehyde, benzenes, the stuff that's given off from our paints, our soaps, our cleaning products, all of that stuff, our plants actually work at removing from our air. And this is one of those fabulous plants at doing that. So this is called a snake plant. Again, easy to kill by over watering. Very low light tolerant, but also does well in high light. So it doesn't matter if you've got lots of light or low light, this plant is for you. And they're very inexpensive and easy to find. So if you can track down one of these guys, these are fabulous, okay? The last plant that I'll recommend for my top 3 picks for beginners, of course, I've got so many more, but the Pothos. And this is a really cool plant. This is actually just a cutting of one, but does this look familiar to anybody? That sort of sweetheart, green shaped leaf. It's got a beautiful cascading growth. So if you're wanting something with a little bit more of a downward foliage growth, this is the plant for you. Yeah, a classic Pothos. Yeah, super healthy. I love a Pothos. My gosh, they grow like crazy. But these plants are also known as devil's ivy. They're really, really hardy. They're super, again, tolerant to low light. You don't have to water them every day. So they're super easy to manage and care for. And the other great thing about Pothos, guys, if you're looking to grow your plant collection on a budget, you got a plant shelf at home, a bookshelf, you really want to fill up with lots of little plants, but you don't really want to spend the money on them. This plant, you can take cuttings from. So check this out. This is a baby off of this mother plant. And I basically took a cutting, I went to the stem and I cut right below a node. And a node is anywhere where a leaf meets the main stem. So that's a node right there. And if you take a cutting right below it, I've got a propagation video on my YouTube channel if you really want to dive into this. It's freaking cool. It's totally awesome. You can take a cutting and simply stick that cutting into water and look at what happens. Look what happened to this. This guy's probably 4 months it's been in there. It's very overdue for repotting, but mind you, they can live in this water substrate entirely. But you can propagate a Pothos plant very, very easily and grow your plant collection. I've got another one here. Look at all the little babies I've got. So super easy. And look at just how cute and chic a couple leaves looks in a nice glass vessel. So that's another option for you guys too. If you're wanting to turn one plant into multiple plants, this is how you do it. And this is the plant that I recommend you start with. In fact, this whole thing is just cuttings. Look, it's just sitting in water. Water and a little bit of leca stones, which is not necessary, but just water. That's all you need. Check it out. The name again is called a Pothos, Pothos. There's golden Pothos, there's neon Pothos, there's a whole different variety of variations in species of how they actually look. But a traditional Pothos plant is a fabulous plant to start with and experiment. We're all urban botanists in our own way. Experiment yourself and try some propagating. Like, why not? Super fun. Okay. Now before I get into that, I want to show you this too, guys. So another way that you can propagate plants, which this is just neat, all right? Like I just have to share. I've got this guy here. Check out this beauty. This is a watermelon peperonia. How gorgeous is that? Look at the foliage. It almost looks like, a watermelon. So this is a type of peperonia. And the way that I propagated this guy, check out the little baby. I propagated this and now I have a whole new plant growing. But the way that I propagated this plant, and all plants, propagate a little bit differently than the other. So this method wouldn't work for a pothos, but it works for this peperonia. And I'm going to show you. Is I took a leaf off of the peperonia. I'm going to pull it out here so you can see very gently. Maybe I won't pull it out. But can you see that starting point? It's a leaf cut in half. I took one of the mother leaves, I cut it, I stuck it in soil, I added water, and it has grown a whole new plant. I'm not kidding. How cool is this? Like, if you're not already into urban horticulture or just gardening, if this doesn't get you excited, nothing will. Like, how neat is this? Okay. So check it out. Again, I've got a propagation video. I think some links have been sent in the chat. If you want to dive a little bit deeper into propagating and growing your plant collection literally for free, with the cost of one plant, I should say. But this is a really cool way to also spread the love, share the love. You can start some cuttings for a friend or a family member, get them excited about propagating, get them excited about plants. So I totally recommend it. And it's just fun, right? It's so rewarding to watch those roots start to spiral out, watch a new leaf unfurl, watch a flower blossom out of one of your plants. And this is, again, that pause, right? That pause with our plants. So I'm going to talk about watering, because that's a question that's already come up, and it's a question I get all the time. How do I water my plants? How often? When? How do I know when my plant needs water? All of those things we're going to talk about, okay? So I like to use a few different methods of watering. I love to have something like this. You could repurpose like a ketchup bottle or a Gatorade bottle, something with just like a small nozzle, because I find that by having a nozzle like this, I can really get in through the foliage and water close to the base of the plant, so that I'm making sure that I'm directing that water flow towards the base of the plant. Now, when you're watering, you always want to make sure that you're doing a good 360 watering of your plants. If you're just going up to your plant shelf and you're watering the exact same spot on that pot every single time, the water is not going to be distributed evenly to the roots down below, which is not what you want. You want to make sure that all parts of the roots are getting water. That way this plant is going to grow nice and evenly. So I love this plant. This is a Calathea. I don't recommend it for beginners because they can be a little bit finicky. You can see kind of some of the leaves are already starting to turn a little crispy, a little yellow, but this is a really great segue into what type of water should I be watering my plants with? Obviously, people are probably going to be like, well, tap water. Are there different types of water? What are you talking about? And yes, there is. There are different types of water. Of course, there's tap water, which is the go-to. And I'll tell you guys that regular tap water can be very hard on your plants. Depending on what municipality you live in, there's different minerals that exist in our water. So whether you're using like a Brita or a filtration system, a lot of the times they can remove a lot of those harsher chemicals, like fluoride and chlorine are the two big ones. And those are added to our water to clean it, right? To make it potable so that we can drink it. But a lot of those chemicals actually remain in our water and can be detrimental not only to our plants' health, but to our health as well. So filtered water is best. Distilled water is in fact the best. If you can stick to distilled water, the only downside is it only comes in like those big plastic jugs, which are kind of the worst. But for my houseplants, what I genuinely like to use is rain water or snow water. I'll scoop a whole bunch of snow into a big pot, let it melt, and then I use it straight away. If you're wanting to go the rainwater route, I just recommend once you've collected that rainwater that you use it right away. You're not saving it, you're not hoarding it, you're not, keeping it for a couple days at a time, because it can kind of get a little bit stinky, a little bit mungy. So just use it straight away. And the reason why I love using precipitation, natural rainwater or snow, is because it's filled with a lot of those natural minerals that these plants would be used to getting in the wild, out and about, right? But if you don't have the ability to do that, or that seems like a little bit of a nightmare to you, that's totally fine. We are all different levels of plant parents, and there's no plant parent shaming here. Absolutely not. What I will do instead is I'll fill up a jar of water. This is tap water, and I will leave it to stand for 24 to 48 hours. And the reason for this is because it allows some of those harsher chemicals to evaporate out of the water. Some people have asked, should I boil my water? Will that help? No, you don't want to do that. But if you leave your tap water out overnight, this does make a difference. And I actually started noticing it with my Calathea. I was watering it lazily with tap water that I left out overnight. I never do straight tap to plant ever. But these guys are particularly sensitive to minerals that exist in your water. So that's kind of why the leaves started to pucker a little bit and to get a little crispy. It tells you when it's pissed off, and a lot of our plants will do that. So if you're pretty good at watering, it's got good sunlight, your plant is just kind of looking, there's little brown spots on it, you're not sure what's up, maybe it's time to change your water up, change up your watering regime. You start using distilled water. If you're gonna use distilled water, pick up one of those jugs and just conserve that water for your plants. They will totally appreciate it. And then maybe you can repurpose that jug, cut the lid off, leave it outside, use it as a rainwater basin, collect rainwater, water your plants with it. It totally makes a huge difference, I'm telling you guys. All right, now how about when to water? Okay, we talked about what type of water, but when should we be watering? How do I know when my plant needs water? Apart from the obvious, slumped, deflated look that our plants will, depending on the plant, will tell us when it needs water. They'll speak to us in the only way that they know how, or the only way that they can. Every plant is different. Every plant will exhibit different features. And why plants actually do that, why they go limp and look a little bit sad or tired when they haven't been watered enough, is basically, if you think about a cell, we're all made up of cells, plants are made up of cells, and in those plant cells is water or turgor pressure. It's called turgor pressure. So when that pressure is high, or when the plant is turgid, the plant is nice and full and plump and erect and up and happy. And that's because those cells are nice and full with that turgor pressure. Think of a balloon, nice and full and plump. And when that turgor pressure is low, think of a deflated balloon. Those cells aren't full. That means that the leaves aren't going to be perked up. The stem is weak. So that is why your plant will actually look a little bit low, and why water will help to fix that, or reintroduce turgor pressure to your plants. So that's why your plants look like that. But a great way, and my best way for telling you of when you need to water your plants, is not the leaves, is not the stems. No, like obviously there's going to be indicators there. It's turning yellow, it's turning brown, but all plants are different. It's so hard to tell. The absolute best way is to go to the soil. Marcy knows. Marcy's like soil moisture meter, 100%. You can use a soil moisture meter. But if you don't have a soil moisture meter, which I'm sure most of us don't, and you can't be bothered to go out and get one, you want to know what your soil moisture meter is? Your finger. Okay, I'm telling you, this is foolproof, guys. I'm straight up. This is the best way to tell if your plant needs water. And this is also can be part of your pausing with plant regime. How many people just wake up every day or every other day and they're like, they've added watering plants to their daily checklist. Oh, walk around, water the plants. On to the next thing, on to the next thing. I invite you to pause. Pause with that plant. Does it need water? Let me check the soil. So you use your finger. I do the 2-knuckle rule. I'll stick my finger in up to the second knuckle and I'll check to see, does it feel moist? Actually that feels a little bit moist as you go to water. Oh, that feels a little bit moist. Maybe I'll wait a couple days. I'll wait until those 2 inches or that 2-knuckle area that I've stuck my finger in feels dry. This is a really great technique to make sure that you're not overwatering your plants, because if that top 2 inches of the soil is still moist, you don't need to water. You're going the right way for overwatering. You can feel the top, absolutely. You can just touch the top, and if the top feels moist, sure. But I really like to do that 2-knuckle all the way down, because the top of the soil could feel dry. And all you had to do is stick your finger down just a little bit deeper and you'll see it is indeed moist. Depends on your space. Everyone's space is different. Marcy's space might be more dry than Kendra's space, might be warmer than Sylvie's, might be getting more sunlight than Nick's space. Everyone's space is different. So that's why you have to take it a little step further and engage a little bit deeper with your plants by checking and doing that 2-knuckle rule. I'm telling you, it works. It's a great way to avoid overwatering your plants. Now, how about pots, right? Another great way to make sure that you are not overwatering your plants is to make sure that your pot has a drainage hole. Super important. This pot, this is one of our pots. So if you're looking for an easy one, we sell these on the urbanbotanist.ca. They're so cute. This is our plant lady pot, but it comes with a nice dish. So you can see how much you have potentially overwatered. The best way to water your plants, guys, is, let's say your plant is actually potted inside of your pot. You bring that pot over to your sink. You water it in the sink. Water, 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 water. And you want to water to the point. It's taking a little bit of time to actually absorb the water, but that's good. See, nothing's coming out the bottom yet. You want to water your plants until, can you guys see that? Water's coming out the bottom. You want to water your plants until you see that water coming out of the bottom, because that means that you have delivered a good, thorough watering. And you're only doing that when the soil has dried out in the top, okay? So key. You want to make sure that you're not just leaving it in that dish, you know, but that's why the dish is fabulous, because you can see, okay, we've watered it to a good point, and now I can go and dump the rest of that water down the drain. Okay, so that's a really good technique, a really good method. Of course, there are sometimes pots that we love that don't have a drainage hole. How many of you guys have pots at home with no drainage? It happens. It's fine. It's cool. Whoever creates pots sometimes isn't always thinking of the plant owner. Yeah, Martin does. It's a thing, and it totally happens. I've got many pots without drainage holes, and it's not the end of the world. It just means that you have to be that much more cognizant of how often you are watering. Some people put rocks down below. That's kind of up for debate. In my opinion, I don't think that that's useful. I don't think that that provides the drainage that a plant truly needs. I think it just provides false feeling of drainage, and then you end up overwatering anyways. And then that rock layer, some people will put rocks in the bottom as a faux drainage layer. But what that rock layer is doing is it's essentially, you know, removing space for potential nutritious soil. So I don't do rocks, but if it works for you, go for it. We're all on our own paths of caring for plants. And if something's working for you, then just keep doing it. It means that your plant has adapted to the style that you're caring for it. And that's totally fine and totally to be expected. Now, how about just leaving your plant in its nursery pot? I get asked that all the time. The nursery pot is the plastic pot that your plant comes with, which is guaranteed to have drainage holes. I get asked all the time, well, do I have to repot it straight away? I was told you can't leave it in that nursery pot. It's bad for it. No. the nursery pot is totally fine. You can leave your plant in there, but of course, your plant needs to be repotted about every 2 years. You'll be able to tell if your plant needs to be repotted if there are roots growing out the bottom of your pot. This guy's a really good example of that. This guy needs to be repotted, but see, I've got him in his nice little fancy pot, but he's actually in his nursery pot, and there's nothing wrong with this. But where you can go wrong with this, and see, look at those roots growing out the bottom. See those roots? Needs to be repotted, which I'm gonna get to. I promise I'm gonna get to you. You're on my list of plants I need to repot. But where some people go wrong using this method, this is called the cash pot method, is keeping your plant in its nice nursery pot and just putting it inside its nice little decorative pot. This totally works and is fine. But what some people do is they'll just water it inside of this inside this pot, just like this. They'll give it water. Yay. No. What we want to do is you want to take that nursery pot out. See, it's dripping water. Where do you think that water's going? To the bottom of your pot. So if you're not taking your plant out, bringing it over to the sink, running your water through it, obviously not your tap water, but your nice water that you've left out overnight, or your distilled water, or outside using your rainwater, but you're just, the sink is so that you can let the excess water drain away in a clean way. But if you're leaving that plant in there and watering it, all that water is just sticking at the bottom, and your roots are going to get root rot. Your plant's just going to be sitting in stagnant, stale water, which is not good. So yeah, you want to make sure that you're bringing it over, watering it, and then returning it to its nice, fancy, pretty pot. Now, repotting, I like to recommend you repot approximately every 2 years. That's depending on how much sunlight your plant's getting, how much it's growing. If you're really noticing that it's almost to the point where it can't even stand upright because the pot is too small for it, or there's roots growing out and over the lip of the pot, or growing out of the bottom, or you look through the bottom drainage holes and you can see the roots spiraling inside, or if you simply lift your plant out of the nursery pot and you can see it's really, really root bound, it might be time to repot. So my other rule of 2, we've got the 2 knuckle rule, right? We got that every 2 years you want to repot. My other rule of 2 is only going up by 2 inches in size for pots. So for example, this is a 4-inch size pot. If I were to repot this, I would only go up to a 6-inch pot in size. I'm not going from 4 to 8 or 4 to 10. And that measurement is the diameter. So this is 4 inches across. And that's how pots are measured. That's how plant pots are measured, is by the diameter of the pot. So this is a 4-inch pot. You want to go up another size. They go up in sizes of 2 typically. You want to make sure that you're going up at least 2 inches and no more than that. Okay. Somebody asked, can the roots be cut off? You don't want to cut off roots because that's new growth. That can really stress out the plant. There's no need to cut off the roots. You want to try and save as much of the roots as possible. And another thing that people don't know is the very tips of the roots is actually where your plant will absorb the most nutrients and the most water through, is through the very tips of the roots. So you don't want to cut those off. Okay. So that is watering. Watering, watering, watering. Now, pausing with plants. I'm going to talk just a little bit more about that and why adding plants to my space and adding pausing with plants to my daily routine really helped to change my lifestyle and really improve my mental health. In that, I find by pausing with my plants, I'm really present in the moment. Like, I'm not going to go crazy on you guys with my woo-woo-ness, but I really do find it forces me to be present in the moment, and I feel so much more at home and so much more connected to my life, to my purpose, to my moment, and to just everything. Because a lot of people don't realize that we are very much connected to nature. We are so innately and deeply connected to nature. And we don't tune into that connection often enough, most people at all. And a lot of the times that feeling of lacking nature can manifest itself in chronic fatigue, chronic anxiety, sleeplessness, restlessness. Maybe you're feeling a lack of creativity. Maybe you're feeling a lack of productivity. Sometimes it can truly be as simple as engaging with nature. And engaging with nature doesn't have to mean you're going out for a 4-hour hike. It doesn't have to mean you're going on a camping trip for the weekend. It doesn't have to be this big, huge commitment. It truly can be as simple as having one houseplant that you engage with on a regular, hopefully daily basis. And what does engaging look like? Engaging can be watering, but we're not watering every day. Engaging can be wiping the leaves down, especially right now. I love to wipe the leaves down of my plants, get that dust off, clear their pores. Plants have pores just like we do. They're called stomata. They're responsible for gas exchange. And of course, the leaves are big photosynthesis sites. So they're responsible for collecting all that sun and turning it into energy. But by removing that dust and debris, you're able to ultimately make your plant much, much happier and healthier. So these are different ways that you can engage with your plants and feel the benefits. And yes, wiping the leaves off with wet paper towel is perfect. You can do that. I just use wet, moist paper towel and wipe the leaves off. Noticing some new growth. All of those things are super fabulous and important for engaging with your plants. Okay, I'm going to open it up to questions, Q&A. Let's go through a Q&A now so I can answer some of your burning questions. And if I don't get a chance to get to your question, or if you have one that pops up later, I'm at the Urban Botanist on Instagram. Feel free to shoot me a message through there. I love plant questions.
Awesome, Emma. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insight on pausing with plants with our college community today. We would now like to invite questions from attendees in the Q&A box, which is located along the bottom of your toolbar. I am going to start off with questions that are generic about plants, and if we have time, I'll go into the ones that are specific types of plants. So the first question I have, Emma, is how do you know when a house plant needs different potting soil, and is there a cycle to replace this soil?
Absolutely. So this is another reason why you want to repot your plants every 2 years with fresh new soil, because fresh soil means fresh nutrients for your plant. So it's definitely important to use fresh, new, high-grade potting soil, but the potting soil will be specific to the type of plant that you're repotting. So if you're repotting a cactus or a succulent, you want to make sure that you're using succulent or cactus grade soil. So that will be specific to the type of plant that you are repotting. If you're using, a traditional, typical tropical plant, which maybe that's easier for me to recognize than you guys, I would just stick to a good tropical grade potting soil. Pro Mix is fabulous. They're a Canadian brand. So that's what I would recommend.
Great. So the next question, there's a couple in here about terrariums. So people are wondering what plants are good for terrariums and if you can use plants that are found outdoors, including moss.
Absolutely. So the types of plants that you're going to use for terrariums is depending on if you're using a sealed terrarium, so anything with a lid, or if you're going to be making an open terrarium, so anything that's open, like a glass bowl, for example. I really love using succulents. I love using succulents for open terrariums. A succulent or a cactus or any plant that really likes to stay dry is not going to do well in a sealed terrarium. I go through this and deep dive into it in one of our, I saw some links were going in there in our Lee Valley terrarium workshop, which I totally recommend you check out, especially if you're wanting to figure out the right plants for you. The other thing I'll recommend when it comes to plants is making sure that you're using small plants. Of course, you're not going to want to use a pothos because they get huge and crazy, but peperomias work really well. Betonia, moss, absolutely. That's a great way to start, is just by picking out some little plants in the forest or in your backyard and just giving those a try and seeing how you fare. Yeah, great question.
Thank you, Emma. So there's questions about bugs. There's not sure if they're good bugs or bad bugs. Is there a way to easily identify, and are there bugs that you'd want to keep in your houseplants?
There are no bugs that you would have on your houseplants that you want, that you would naturally just have, that you picked up somewhere. There are beneficial insects. They're a type of mite that you can introduce to your plant collection if you have like an infestation, but those wouldn't be naturally occurring on your houseplants. So chances are, if you're seeing insects on your plants, they're not a good insect. They're there for a reason, because it's a food source, and that's why they're there. So beneficial insects absolutely do exist, more for your outdoor gardens. I am going to try some beneficial mites myself this year, but some people can get a little bit weirded out by the idea of like releasing insects into your houseplants. But there are some options. If you have insects on your plants indoors, there's a few different ways of telling what they are. If they're mealybugs, they might look like fluffy white spots. If they're thrips, your plant might be doing something like this. I just dealt with a full-blown thrip attack. You can't really see, but it almost looks like mosaic thrip attack. There's different ways of telling depending on what the insect is, but I always like to look for insect activity. Little webbing can be an indicator of spider mites. If you look a little bit closely, and again, that's that pause with plants, just take a beat. Look a little closer. Look on the underside of leaves. Usually insects are hiding on the under part of your leaves too. And see if there's anything moving around. Scale is another type of insect pest that can go unnoticed. They look like little brown bumps on your plant. And those can really, really devastate your plant collection. So another thing that I'll recommend is when you're going out, you're buying a new plant, you're picking up a new plant baby. We're all familiar with quarantine now, but I like to quarantine that plant. I like to keep it away from the rest of my plant babies, just in case it has a little something on it that I don't want spreading to the rest of my collection. So I'll do that for 2 weeks. I'll observe it, make sure I'm not noticing anything questionable, and then I'll introduce it to the rest of my plants.
Great, Emma, thank you. And on a similar note, an attendee's wondering, is putting alcohol in the soil or on the leaves a way to quick fix getting rid of some of these bugs?
So quick fix, there's truly no quick fix. There's a multitude of different ways that you can manage pests. Safers and all, there's a lot of different insecticidal soaps that you can try. It's usually in a concentrated bottle that you dilute and spray onto the stems, spray onto the leaves, and that works. Alcohol or hydrogen peroxide you can use, but you really do have to dilute it, and you have to be careful just that you're not damaging the leaves. Some people have used diluted hydrogen peroxide to kill fungus gnats in the soil. But what that also does is it kills all the other important microorganisms in your soil. So I don't use that method. I use what's called nematodes. So they are a predatory ringworm. That sounds gross and weird, but they are microscopic worms that you would never see. You can check out the highlight reel on my Instagram page called Plant Care. I talk about all the insects, all the pests, and it's a really good free resource for you to dive a little bit deeper with the insect issues, or send me a DM. I'm here for you.
Great, Emma, thank you. The next question I have is about, there's a couple of them actually, about getting plants to flower. They're wondering if fertilizer would help with this, certain types of soil, or anything they can do special to help with getting their flowering plants to flower.
Absolutely. Fertilizer is definitely a yes. Fertilizers, especially if they're specific for blooming, the blooming phase of your plant, can certainly help to encourage your house plants to flower. But the other main thing that will encourage your plants to flower is a lot of sun. So if it's in a spot that's not getting a lot of sun, or maybe you've got a corner of your house that gets a lot more, try moving it to a sunnier spot. Truly, sunlight is the best way to encourage your plants to flower. And you got to think, a lot of the times these tropical plants, the big birds of paradises, the Hoyas, the plants that do have absolutely stunning flowers, they're meant to flower under the most pristine and ideal greenhouse temperatures that we just don't have here. So to encourage that, you really have to introduce a lot of fabulous heat, humidity, warmth, and sunlight. But absolutely, fertilizers can help, but it's not going to guarantee it. But nothing in nature is guaranteed. I would recommend a blooming fertilizer and more sun for sure.
We have a couple questions about leca, and they're wondering if you think this is a great choice to grow their plants in.
Leca stones are a medium that absolutely works. I like to put my cuttings in leca stones. For those of you who don't know what leca is, I've got some in this container here. They're like a volcanic stone. They certainly work. They're certainly great. You can even leave your plant in a leca substrate for the entirety of its life. It's essentially a hydroponic system that you're setting up for it to live in. It certainly works. Leca stones can be a little bit expensive. You can buy them at IKEA in a nice big bag and it'll last you forever. You can reuse it as many times as you need to. I always recommend that you wash your leca stones before you use them with your plants. And washing is just simply doing a really, really good and thorough rinse. And that makes a huge difference when using your leca. But yes, I absolutely recommend it. It works great, especially if you're wanting to like experiment with different substrates. It can be a really fabulous substrate to work with. I hope that answers the question.
That's great, thank you. There's an attendee wondering if you can recommend any plant apps.
How do you spell it? Is L-E-C-A, Moray, who is asking about leca. L-E-C-A for leca stones. Plant apps, yes, there's one called Picture This. And that's a great app for identifying a plant straight away. It's called Picture This. It's super for taking a picture and having it identify the plant for you. There's also the iNaturalist, which is great for identifying a multitude of fungi, plant species. I think they even identify birds and other mammals and all flora and fauna, but iNaturalist and Picture This work fabulously.
Awesome, thank you. The next question I'm going to go to, you touched on this a little bit, but an attendee is wondering, are there types of plants that can only live in water? And if so, what's the best way to make sure they get a source of supplements?
Well, aquatic plants would be the variety of plants that only live in water. And I don't have really all that much experience with aquatics. And yes, certainly there are liquid nutrients, liquid fertilizers that you would provide to those plants. But for the most part, any of your tropicals, any of my houseplants that you see here are not, are not water-based plants. So if you are looking to get into aquatics, that's a whole other realm. Lily pads, a lot of different mosses. There's a whole world of aquascaping that is very similar to terrarium building, but you're doing it in an aquarium essentially. So I don't have all that much knowledge on that, but there certainly are a multitude of plants that are meant for that just live in water. So yeah, look into that. Let me know what you find. I would be so interested in getting into that hobby as well, even though I probably don't need more hobbies, but if it's plant included, let's go. I'm into it.
Awesome, Emma. Well, thank you so much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions today, but as Emma mentioned, she is here for you. So I'm going to go ahead and put her Instagram and her website in the chat there. So feel free to reach out to her, send her a DM, check out her website. I was responding to some questions we didn't get to in the chat with links to her blog and to her YouTube. She does have a lot of great videos, some short and some long, full events like this. So definitely worth checking it out. You might get some answers to your additional plant questions there. So thank you, Emma. Again, it was a pleasure to learn from you today. And thank you to all the attendees who joined us. I just want to mention again that we did record this event and it'll be available to rewatch in the coming days on the AC Hub On Demand website. We will also send Emma a copy. So if she so chooses, sometimes they end up on her YouTube page as well. And every month, the AC Hub hosts a variety of virtual events. So definitely check out our events calendar and our socials for upcoming events. Thank you again, Emma. Thank you again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day and have a lovely, lovely spring and summertime. I hope to see you guys on the internet somewhere. So thank you for having me.